Alright, Ninja, so wrapping up the showcases for the brand new free characters in Brave Souls. Today we're having a look at the highlight of the entire banner, a new Machine Society ULQUIORRA, who is a character that is not free of any controversy. When this character releases SA2, was doing half the damage of a normal SA2, so because of that I did delay my showcase for the character. I wanted to wait for him to get fixed, and now he is currently fixed, which is actually really cool. Now, leading up to this end of month banner, there was a lot of excitement given that we knew we were about to get a new powerful power character designed for Limit Breaker, but also most likely designed for a Nightmare Guild Quest, and that's exactly what this character is. A new Power of Rank Espada with the Quincy kill ability. Now, he is a special type of character given that he is also one of the 3 characters in the game right now to have 2 soul traits on release, that being 20% strong attack damage and 12% recharge. You will see in the gameplay, but he also does come with the Getsugu Jujisho type of attack, a 2-stage charge strong attack for his SA3, which of course is very powerful with any mod you do put him against. But if we have a look at his damage output, he does have a 20% Berserker after defeating 20 enemies, and an additional 20% strong attack damage buff, which he does give to your entire team after 40 enemies defeated. And this is a universal team buff. It doesn't matter about the affiliation, the attribute, everyone in your team is getting 20% more strong attack damage. Now, alongside that, the character itself does have Frenzy +2, an extra 40% damage to weakened enemies, an increased chance to inflict star elements, and also an 80% SP boost. So honestly, a very high damage output, especially once he does get his 40 kills. One thing to keep in mind about his character, that his increased chance, just like Ichigo, he's a very similar character to Ichigo in fact, is that his increased chance is only against the enemies that he has killer against, in this case Quincy's. And this is more optimized in Guild Quest content because you are going against 5 different types of enemies in different affiliations, in different attributes, but they're all going to be Quincy's. So every time you use him in Guild Quest, he's going to have that increased chance to do weakening, which allows him to do basically 90% more damage. Of course, along with that, he comes with some extra goodies: long stride, sharpshooter, weakened defense. Overall, just making him a great character, right? Power as a whole, the attribute has desperately needed a character like this, and while he is a step in the right direction, the attribute itself still does need more. ULQUIORRA is just a great addition to the attribute, making it a lot better, and for most people, given his gameplay, he's probably going to be their go-to power character. So today we are going to try out ULQUIORRA in multiple different types of content. First up though, let's take him into the Ultra Inheritance Trials quest, and for today's build, we are going to be using at least an IT, a Zeta pill because there are going to be hidden enemies, a fortification pill, and of course also a T set. When we aren't using a Zeta pill, instead we will just have the strong attack damage item, the Espada chair for example. We are using as a 1 out of 5 character, so only SP level 10, with full stamina and also SP as bonus abilities. And then for his links, we are going with a mixture of recharge, full stamina, and also strong attack damage at full stamina. With that said though, let's jump into the quest. Alright then, so here we go. So first up, his SA1 is going to be a beam forwards. Obviously, since he does have Frenzy 2, he does have more hits than usual, right? At least when compared to characters with Frenzy +1, giving him a better chance to inflict stat elements. Although in this case, right, you know, Inheritance Charge, you only ever want to use a character that has that increased chance to inflict stat elements. But in this case, using his SA3, his damage output is enough to kind of just brute force his way through the Iron Skin ability in Inheritance Trials, despite him not having that increased chance to inflict stat elements. When this character is killer against Quincy enemies, he's obviously going to perform a lot better. I don't usually like showcasing characters without killer, but in this case, honestly, at 1 out of 5 thus far, he's not doing too bad, especially now that his SA2 damage has been fixed. What we can do though is use our SA3 and then straight nuke into the next wave, and that itself honestly felt very powerful. Thus far, the character feels powerful, especially now that we have gotten the enemies defeated bonus. Visually, in my opinion, this character looks great. Strong attack kit wise, he plays great too. Let's go ahead and use our SA3 again. Really do love this strong attack, want to see him more often, and I'm very happy to see it put on a seasonal character like him. In this case, I'm going to use my SA1 here, maybe get this enemy super weak, and then we're going to let the SA3 go into the next stage, because remember, for those that don't know how the SA3 does work, it does hit multiple times, but it's only going to hit one enemy once each phase. So if we use our SA3 here, if the enemy walked into it, as he did there, it actually killed the enemy, damaged the next wave, and then we let off the final attack where we did then more damage. The character itself also does have some good survivability. We aren't immune to star elements, but we do have the stamina recovery in between stages, and that will definitely help us out if we do take damage, potentially lose a bit of full stamina. Let's use our SA1 upwards. Let's go here, SA3 again, charge it up. The first part knocks the enemies down, the second part finishes them. Unfortunately, didn't really position myself in the best place there. I'm actually not sure how they fixed the SA2. For those that weren't aware, it was the hit count that was basically the problem, and I'm not sure how they fixed it. If they changed the magnifications, if they changed the hit count, But all I know is that it's fixed, and now it does the appropriate amount of damage. And unfortunately, I just realized my mouse cursor was on the bottom right of the screen. I don't like when that happens. In this case, let's just use our Soul Bomb. And we actually nuke into the final stage where we get to finish up with the SA1. And I gotta say, the Soul Bomb is easily one of my favorites of the entire year thus far. It's full of life, like the background itself looks great. The sound effects, the underappreciated part of most characters, actually sounded really good. And the whole idea of him having an EMP built into his arm, shutting down the entire city, is really, really cool. Now, in this case, for our very first run, I'm not going to try again, truth be told, but we did get a 2-minute and 38-second clear time. Not the fastest, honestly not the fastest, but then again, as far as power attribute goes, they don't really have anything better, to be fair. But given that his increased chance is only against Quincy enemies, it means more often than not he's never going to be most optimal in inheritance trials, and that's kind of fine. He's already designed for it. But at least in the gameplay that I was playing here, we weren't really going for the fastest playtime, but we were still able to clear pretty fast. Like the damage we were doing, we were killing multiple waves. The SA3 itself absolutely nukes, and he was a very safe and fun character. When he, of course, has Killer, he's going to go for inheritance trials super, super fast. We're probably the best character user for that particular IT. When he doesn't have Killer, he's just pretty good. If I played appropriately, you could probably get that down to maybe 1 minute and 40, maybe just under 2 minutes. Which without Killer at 1.5 is honestly just fine. Next up though, we're taking him into the Renji Epic Raid, where currently we are a bonus, and we're going to see how fast it takes him to do 20 million damage. We have to spend an extra bit of time here to at least destroy the barriers or the shield. Once we're done that, as long as we inflict an SP boost, we should be absolutely golden. Again, unfortunately, in this case, no increased chance to do so. So I kind of want to avoid using my SA3 until we actually get that off. There we go. We got it there. That's nice. Let's go ahead and use the SA3. 190k on the first hit, and then 150k per hit on that second part. That was really good. Next phase, into phase 3. Again, let's use our Soul Bomb. That's going to apply the weakened defense and also reacquire the SP boost. Unfortunately, no strong attack to really follow up on the weakening part, but honestly, still not too bad. Let's use the SA3 there, and that should hopefully almost go into the final part. I think 200k a hit there, actually. That's not too bad. Let's use the SA2 into the 1. Couple more NAD hits. There we go. There we go. In this case, around a 53-second playtime. Not as fast as I thought it would be, but then he is kind of waiting to get the SP boost. If you get the SP boost more consistently, maybe you would clear a tad bit faster. But it's still fast nonetheless. In this case, a 52-second playtime. Let's try it once more. This time with a full lobby. Alright then, so I opened up my lobby. We have 3 ULQUIORRAs, including myself. We have a kind of random set of characters. 8th anniversary Ichigo, a Ririka, and also Nen. That's fine though. It honestly is. So in this case, just to make sure we can get our highest damage output right away, unfortunately, for some reason, I didn't apply the SP boost. I think, unfortunately for me, someone applied a stars before me. So that really does suck. Even though we did apply the weakened defense, I didn't get my SP boost. We would actually clear that phase significantly faster. Let me use my SA3. Let me let off early. Remember, that's the thing you can do with ULQUIORRA. You do not need to fully charge up the attack, right? You can always let it off as early as you want it to, right? And it still does more damage than the SA3. That's the greatest part about that third strong attack, right? It's not a gimmick. It's a normal strong attack free if you want it to be. But if you let it off fully, it does do more damage. In this case, we finally got into the final phase. We are going to go through super fast. I kind of want to redo that. I definitely want to redo that because, unfortunately, I didn't get the SP boost once this entire quest. And that resulted us actually clearing slower than what we cleared when I was just by myself, funny enough. Alright, then here we go. Attack number 2. In this case, we have almost a full lobby of ULQUIORRAs. The only character here that's actually autoing is Yukio. So let me go ahead and use my Soul Bomb. That applies the SP boost. Let's charge up the SA3. There we go. Nice and easy SA1. Mazu my normal attacks. There we go. Would really hope for an ULQUIORRA here to use their strong attack, or Soul Bomb, sorry. So we can apply the weakened defense. Get through this phase a lot faster. Doesn't like it, unfortunately. Alright, just charge up the SA3. Maybe we can apply weakening. Unfortunately not. Tad bit faster on this run though. SA2 goes off. We are now into the final phase. Now they use their Soul Bomb right at the end. Come on. Come on. Weakened defense always needs to go first and foremost. Use your Soul Bombs right when the phase starts. Either way, even though we didn't get the weakened defense off on both phases, we still cleared pretty fast. In this case, 40 seconds. Or I guess in this case, 39 seconds. Next up, let's try him out in Guild Quest, which is a big part of this character given he is a ranged Quincy killer. The ranged Quincy Guild Quest in particular doesn't have access to that many characters. And while this ULQUIORRA is a step in the right direction, I think most people realize that even though he is a great lead, he's still not enough to tackle content like the Nightmare Guild Quest. I know and I understand that the gameplay that you are seeing here, first and foremost in Very Hard, then Nightmare, this was at the time when his SA2 was bugged. So keep that in mind, right? This is him prior to him being fixed. Unfortunately, we couldn't test him when he was fixed while the GQ was active. But in my opinion, ULQUIORRA I think is good enough to get you through the Very Hard guild quest. But when it comes to the Nightmare difficulty, it's still difficult even with him. And that's not a problem with the character itself. It's just that the characters that you use with him are just kind of bad. He, of course, doesn't have access to like a god tier support like Akon, for example, to Yatsuru. The closest character is someone like this Yami, who can give him 40% more damage to weakened enemies. But I do believe even the character didn't have a bugged SA2, most people would still be unable to beat this quest because of the lack of other options to go with him. Most people are maybe bringing Ruruka, a character that came out like 3 years ago where her damage output isn't really the greatest. And I think most teams would really want to include someone like Orihime, because one thing you will see when you use this character's SA3 is that obviously the first initial attack sometimes does push back the enemies, but the bosses themselves will still come and attack you. So if you don't have any type of barrier character with you, you're very likely going to get hit when you're charging up that SA3. A character like Ichigo, a very similar character with the gameplay that he does have, can apply Lacerate, and that actually stops the enemies, the bosses in particular, from doing damage to you because once they're lacerated, they can't use their strong attacks. With ULQUIORRA, he has no way to stop the enemies from actually attacking him, so when you are using the SA3, you probably want to position yourself a tad bit far away so the enemy doesn't get too close, or again have someone like, male Orihime to give you those barriers. But honestly, when I was testing that in Guild Quest, I was very impressed with his gameplay, but we were using a team that did consist of a max transcended Ruruka, which I think is what most people lacked. And in the future, if we get any extra support for this character, the Guild Quest will overall become a lot more smoother, right? One thing I will say though, and again in regards to his SA3, is that it is inconsistent in the damage that it does do, in the sense that sometimes you'll afflict weakening during the final part of the attack, and sometimes you won't. So there are times like you do good damage, and then there was times I was doing crazy damage. But overall, his damage output was very good, even though his SA2 in this gameplay was bugged. His SA2 was doing less, so realistically, if this Nightmare GQ comes back around, or even the Very Hard GQ comes back around with this character, with this team, we will clear even faster. And then last but not least, we're taking him into Limit Breaker Quest, where this time he is a bonus character, and we're just going to strictly show ULQUIORRA stages. Now, gameplay-wise, he was great. The Beam SA1 allows him to attack from afar, potentially takes down a whole wave of enemies, right? Multiple waves sometimes. And then his SA2 being a lunge with an AoE in front of it, for the final part of the attack, was honestly really good for doing a lot of damage, but also clearing up a lot of enemies. It's very smooth gameplay that we've seen in past characters, where like when you're trying to be fast in content like this, it's not awkward to use them. It's very smooth gameplay, straightforward gameplay. The SA3, of course, is really good in this game mode, especially since weakening isn't nerfed here. If you do apply weakening on the first part of the charge SA3, you're basically ensuring that when the second part goes off, the massive AoE, it is doing 90% more damage, guaranteed almost. Just like Ichigo, this SA3 does a ridiculous amount of damage, especially against the poised enemies, the enemies have a large amount of HP. And this Limit Breaker in particular has significantly more HP compared to past Limit Breaker quests. So it's actually more impressive that he's able to clear his quest as fast as he already is. But the SA3 itself is almost like a soul bomb in of itself, right? It saves you the need to use a soul bomb, which most teams will only have access to one soul bomb at a time, maybe two if you're using Yuha. And having the option to not use your soul bomb because your SA3 does so much damage is really good and helps you clear further, faster for the other characters because you get to then focus on using their soul bomb. But even in a situation where you do want to use your soul bomb, he does have weakened defense, which then allows you to do 30% more damage. And in this case, I believe when we used our soul bomb into the SA3, at one point I think I did like 2 million damage per hit, which is absolutely insane. He's definitely going to be a good character in future Limit Breaker quests, especially when you are required to bring a power character or just a ranged power character. His damage output is good enough to basically be usable when he doesn't have all the damage requirements or damage buffs from any potentially current future months worth of rules. But yeah, overall, was very impressed with his gameplay in Limit Breaker, was very fun too, and was clearing super fast despite this set of enemies having significantly more HP than usual. But with that said, lads, that was the video for today, going over the new Future Society ULQUIORRA. In my opinion, the highlight of the entire banner, a much needed character for the power attribute, and a great addition to the game. Really nice to see that very cool and unique yet powerful SA3 return, and it does make sense with this character. Visually, he looks great, and he's a great character, right? A lot of usability. He was great in Limit Breaker, he was great great in Guild Quest despite his SA2 being nerfed when I first used him. And he was a character that I know a lot of people like went for just for his performance in Guild Quest because most people don't have a good character for the range Quincy Guild Quests. I do believe most people's first impression was kind of made worse than it actually is because again, when the Guild Quest came out, for those that aren't aware, they changed the defense stat and raised it upon ULQUIORRA's release to what it usually was. So those that compared his playtime to Toshiro the day prior, Toshiro looked better despite the Guild Quest being easier at the time. Alongside that, most people's first impression of the character in Guild Quest was in the Nightmare difficulty, where we're more used to testing characters in the very hard difficulty. And then in Limit Breaker, the enemies have more HP than usual. So the two game modes where people tested him out in, plus his SA2 doing half the damage that it usually does, I think gave people the negative impression that the character isn't as good as we made him out to be. But now that he's been fixed, I think he honestly performs great. It's just unfortunate to a certain extent that the two game modes you put him against were like some of the hardest piece of content in the game because the teams are bad and the enemies have more HP than usual. But even despite that, in my opinion, at least from my testing, honestly, he performed very, very good. ULQUIORRA is a great character to have. I'm kind of sad that I don't have him. I might pull on his individual. We'll see how it does go. Would love to see more characters like this in the power attribute. With that said, let me know what you like to think about this character in the console below. Shout out to Dragon for letting me use their account today. And I'll see you guys next time. Take care and peace.